There was this nurse in Australia named Bronnie Ware. She was a hospice nurse. And so she took care of patients when they were about to die. And she asked him a question, Rocky. And the question was, do you have any regrets? And she wrote a book about it. It's called The 5 Regrets of Dying. You know what the number one regret was? Not living the life I could have lived, living someone else's life, not doing what I know I'm capable of. So if you're listening and you're afraid of failure, for God's sakes, fear regret more than failure. We fail our way to success, guys.
Hey, it's Rocky. Welcome to Richer Soul. Today's guest is Rod Khleif, who's going to share how to find fulfillment in life. Imagine it's 12 months from now, and you've achieved your major life goals. How does it feel to be in the best shape of your life? To wake up energized, excited about the day? To have great relationships and friends who support you and propel you forward? How does it feel to have an excess of money, to be able to make the choices you want? To be fearless and open to trying new adventures? Imagine being connected to the universe and it providing everything you desire. It's possible over time, and your past does not dictate your future. The only thing holding you back from this vision is you. It's time to take control of our thoughts and use them to our advantage. Welcome to Richer Soul, where we achieve our dreams and create harmony to health, wealth, relationships, time, and spirituality. If you have not had a chance to listen to episodes 1 through 9, I encourage you to go back and listen to the framework behind Richer Soul and how to create the life of your dreams. You can also find all the show notes for this episode at richersoul.com. Today's quote is from Malcolm Forbes. The biggest mistake people make in life is not trying to make a living doing what they enjoy most. I think too often we may not realize that we can make a lot of money doing what we love. And part of that is because we have a passion for it. And that passion and that enthusiasm comes out in the work we do. You don't love it, you don't have that. And it shows. You have to figure out how this is going to work for you. And make sure it's something the world wants. Taking the time to do this early in life is valuable. I'm going to share how my son is doing it. But first, let's review last week's action step, which was to be a better person. How can you help someone and expect nothing in return? And that's really the key, just doing for the sake of doing. It really brings joy to you when you know they can't pay you back. The reality is we can't change the world, we can't change people, but we can change ourselves in the way we show up. So back to finding what you love. My son is finishing his junior year in college, well ahead of schedule, and he's off to intern at Google this summer. And it's kind of funny because we have a picture of him from around 4th grade from school, and they asked, what do you want to do when you grow up? He's holding this sign that said, work for Google. He's put in a ton of time to get where he is today. And because he had the freedom in high school, as we've talked about on previous episodes, he was able to spend his time pursuing his passions, learning skills, practicing those skills, and setting himself up for early life success. He'll graduate college with a computer engineering degree, and he's never going to be allowed to legally drink. He's going to be 20 years old when he graduates. Most of his classmates are a lot older than him. Many kids take a long time to get through engineering. But it doesn't have to be that way. Get focused, know what you want, ignore everything else. Most of my kids around my son's age were pursuing sports. I can assure you, none of them is going to get to the NFL or whatever major sports thing. That just within our group. Is it possible? Sure, but what are your odds? Horrible. And even then, what are the long-term odds of actually making big bucks? He pursued something the world wants, software engineering. Started getting his hours in early. And I know he's going to be ahead of kids who were 2 years ahead of him in high school because he's got the skills and he had the time to go practice. So there's more to life than just money. Imagine having it all and being depressed. It seems so absurd, and yet that's what happens to many people when they forget what's most important in life. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Rod has an amazing story to share and a lot of lessons from those struggles. You see, money alone is not going to create the ultimate life. There is so much more to it than that. Rod Khleif is a multiple business owner and philanthropist who is passionate about real estate, business, and giving back. As one of the country's top business, real estate, and peak performance luminaries, Rod has owned over 2,000 homes and apartment buildings and has built over 24 businesses in his 40-year business career. He soared from humble beginnings as a young impoverished Dutch immigrant to incredible success. Rod's experience involves both remarkable triumphs and spectacular failures, which he affectionately calls seminars. Rod will share the mindset required to recover from losing $50 million in the crash of 2008 to the success he enjoys today. He'll bring us incredible authenticity and insights in his approach to business and life. Let's meet our guest. Welcome to Richer Soul, Rod Khleif. It's great to have you join us today.
Oh, I appreciate you having me, Rocky. Let's have some fun today.
And I'm excited to learn from you. We always like to start at the beginning. What was it like when you were growing up, and how much did your family and school teach you about money?
Well, that's a great question, actually. So I immigrated this country when I was 6 years old with my brother Albert, my mother's Vansha. I was born in the Netherlands, think wooden shoes and windmills. And we ended up in Denver, Colorado, and we really struggled. So, I remember eating expired food because that's what we bought, powdered milk with our cereal in the morning, which sounds a lot better than it is. Trust me. I remember wearing clothes from the Goodwill and the Salvation Army all the way through junior high school till I literally, honestly lied about my age of Burger King when I was 14, and I got a job there so I could buy my own clothes and ultimately buy a car, which is what I wanted at the time. And I'm sure you've got listeners that had it harder than we did, but I knew I wanted more. And luckily, you asked what family taught me about money. My mom was a bit of an entrepreneur. So she babysat kids so we'd have enough money to eat. And with her babysitting money, she invested in the stock market successfully. And she also got into real estate. So her first real estate was the house right across the street from us. She bought it when I was 14 for about $30,000. And when I was 17, she told me she made $20,000 in her sleep. And I'm like, what? You made $20,000? You didn't do anything? And so I said, Mom, I'm not going to college. I'm getting into real estate. Forget college. And so I got my real estate broker's license right when I turned 18. Didn't make any money my first couple of years, maybe $8,000 my first year, $10,000 my second year. But my third year, I made over $100,000. And so one thing I'm known for is just this conversation. So what happened between year 2 and 3 that caused me to 10x my income? Well, what happened is I met a guy that taught me about mindset and psychology and how really 80 to 90% of your success in anything is your mindset and your psychology. And so, fast forward to today, I've owned over a couple thousand houses. I've rented long-term, thousands of apartment units. In 2006, my net worth went up $17 million while I slept. And you're probably saying, oh, wow. And I said, oh, wow. And I got a head so big I could barely fit it through a door. And I thought I was a real estate god. And when that happens, God or the universe will give you a nice little smack. Well, that was 2008. I lost $50 million in 2008. And so, again, on my podcast and in my boot camps, I'm known for talking about mindset and psychology because that truly, in my opinion, is the biggest secret to success. And so, we talk about how, the mindset it took to have that kind of money, to have it, to lose in the first place, and then what it took to get back from that. But anyway, quick version of my story.
So who was that person who taught you about mindset?
The mindset was the father of someone I was dating. Okay, so I dated this girl and it was her father, and I worked with him. He was a real estate broker as well, and just a real character, but they had all kinds of cool things. They had a house with a 3-car garage, which I'd never seen before. He had a couple of Corvettes that he let me drive one, which was pivotal in my life as well, because I believe in manifesting, and I didn't know what it meant back then, but I got a picture of a Corvette and I put it on the visor of my bone ugly 4-door car that I bought. And within a year or two, I had a Corvette. I've used that dynamic to get pretty much everything I've ever wanted in my life, to visualize and manifest these things. And so, yeah, he was a real interesting character, but I learned a lot from him. Yeah.
Do you know where he learned, or was that just natural to have?
No,
that
it was
mindset?
natural. He was hilarious, but he was a natural salesman, and real funny about it too. I mean, he had sold mobile homes, he'd sold cars, and when I met him, he was selling real estate. But just really, taught me that the vehicle isn't the most important piece. The vehicle meaning real estate or entrepreneurship, business ownership. I've built a lot of businesses in my life. Okay. And by the way, I don't call them failures. I call them seminars. That was a $50 million seminar that I had. And, because it's only a failure if you don't get back up, you don't get the lesson. But, he taught me to just focus on what I wanted, not what I didn't want, to get around people that were making things happen, and just to not give up no matter what. And to really be clear on what I wanted. And, Napoleon Hill in his book, Think and Grow Rich, talks about having a burning desire. You've got to have a burning desire. That's what's going to get your butt out of bed early in the morning, get you to stay up late at night, and hustle, grind for a few years like most people won't. So, that you can live the rest of your life like most people can't. And he taught me that.
Do you find most people have clarity on what they want?
No. And that's why you come to one of my boot camps. The first thing we do is about an hour and a half goal setting session, goal setting on steroids. And because most people don't. And how do you get anything if you don't know what it is, right? And I mean, you need clarity. It's critical that you have clarity on your goals, because a lot of people don't even write down their goals. They'll do a couple of New Year's resolutions that are forgotten by February. But if, just write, a simple act of writing your goals down triggers something in your brain called your reticular activating system. And that's that subconscious filter. You're not conscious of it, it's subconscious, that points you in the direction that your brain thinks you're interested in. The greatest example is when you first buy a car. You never really notice them, and then you buy the car, you see them everywhere. And, were they there before? Of course they were, but that's your reticular activating system, and that applies to your goals. And that's why it's so critical to have as much clarity around them as possible. And again, this is how I had 50 million to lose, knowing what I wanted, why I wanted it, and then visualizing and manifesting it. But that's how I got back as well. Sure, I hid under a rock for a few months, when I lost everything, but then I reassociated with what I wanted and got myself back on track. And, it's so easy to focus on the pain. And, we go through life, connecting through pain and focusing on pain. And as a leader, you can't do that. Focus is critical as a leader. And I'm sure if you're, listening and watching Rocky's show here, you're a leader. And right now, more than ever, the world needs leaders. And focus is probably one of the most important pieces. You can't allow yourself to get sucked into the negativity. Don't get me started on the fake news out there right now, but you can't allow that to happen. You've got to stand guard at the door to your mind and bring in the good stuff. And, on YouTube, for example, there's lots of motivational content. On my podcast, I do these little clips called Own Your Power. They're little 5-minute clips. I don't care if you are not even interested in real estate, but if I've got hundreds of them there, and they're very motivational. There's music on the more recent ones, and, give me 5 minutes a week. I'll juice you if you're interested. So, I'm trying to practice what I preach as far as positive focus and positive motivation.
So how do you lose $50 million and just get right back up and keep going? Well, it sounded like it was,
I didn't get right
a couple
back up.
Months, right?
Yeah, it took a few months. I didn't get right back up. Well, how do you lose it? So I had 800 houses and I had multiple apartment complexes. It was the houses that pulled me down. If I hadn't cross-collateralized my houses with my apartment complexes with packages of houses, I still have the apartment complexes. Sure, they pulled back, but they would have survived, which is actually the main reason I started my podcast, was to tell people, if you're going to buy real estate to hold, for God's sakes, don't do houses, do multifamily. Use me as the poster child example for that. In fact, early on in my podcast, it's been around for 5 years now, but I used to say, I'll never sell you anything. And, I just want to add value, which was the truth. And now, of course, I've got courses and coaching and everything else. I'm a liar, but I never planned to. You want to make God laugh, you tell him your plans, right? So
how did you get back up?
Well, again, what I did was several things. Number one is I reassociated with what I wanted and why I wanted it. It would have been very easy to bemoan, and make losing 50 million my story. And yeah, I use it as illustrative purposes, but it's not my identity anymore. Okay. And it was for a little while, it was my identity. Woe was me. But so I reassociated with what I wanted. That was the main thing that I did. And then, I got around a peer group of people that were thriving through that crash. Most of my peers were struggling to survive. I wanted to be around people that were thriving. So I joined Tony Robbins' Platinum Partnership. I'd actually joined it before the crash, thank God. So I was around these people already. And that was a real blessing. So that's a critical piece. And then, I redirected my focus, like we talked about, into the things that I wanted instead of what I didn't want. I didn't focus on the loss. I focused on what I wanted. They asked Mother Teresa if she was anti-war. She said, no, I'm pro-peace. Kind of the same thing, but you get my point. And so, that was a big piece. I made a decision that I was just going to get my butt back up and make things happen. And, the Latin root of the word decision means to cut off. It's like, it's not a 1 foot in, 1 foot out thing. It is freaking done. So I just said, I'm going to go kick ass again. I'm sorry, but I'm going to go make things happen again. And that's what I did. And so, when you're committed and you make that decision, you're like a train on a track. If you're just interested, you'll get knocked off track. And so I made that commitment that I was going to get back. I wasn't sure how yet, but I built a company that turned into a $10 million company. I sold a few years ago. I had 60 employees, and that's what I built out of the ashes of all of that. But now I'm back in commercial real estate, buying, thousands of apartment units. Love what I do. And I teach that. That's what I do at my boot camps. I teach people how to buy multifamily. And, I know you may not have people watching that are interested in that, but maybe they might want to invest passively. And if they are, then if that's you, then you may want to spend some time with me and learn the business. Because I'm of the adage, why would you give your money to anybody if you don't know what it is? And that goes for stock market trading. I mean, people will put money in the stock market and get sold by their stock trader that only knows how to sell, hasn't got a clue what to invest in. And same thing with real estate. You want to be careful if you're going to give somebody your hard-earned money. So if that's you and you're thinking you might want to invest passively, I'll mention later how you can, join me in one of my boot camps because they're very inexpensive. And I don't sell anything there either. It's just total training. I believe in adding value, and it comes back to me 100-fold, 1,000-fold. So that's what I do.
And that it does. We've had quite a few people who've gone through Tony's Platinum Partnership in the past. And yeah, you're not going to sulk in a room like that because they won't put up with it. They will whip you into shape.
Yeah, no, same with my coaching program now. I've got students now and I teach, and I've been teaching for about 4 years. And something I'm super proud of is my coaching students now own over, I think, 52,000 units in 4 years. It's my greatest achievement next to my kids. Super proud of that. And it's because we don't, there's no negativity. We push each other up. We hold each other up. We validate. We encourage. That's what we do in there. And that's I got that from being around Tony and that initial mastermind. Yeah.
You mentioned early on about visualization and manifestation. And I think a lot of people get very confused with this. They think if they just visualize it, it'll happen. They forget that there's some work that has to be done.
You're right. And I will tell you, though, the first step is deciding what you want. The next step, in my opinion, is deciding why you want it. And this is what we do in my goal setting workshop and at my boot camps. But you've got to know the why. The why is the real driver. And then you've got to get pictures and put them around you so that you see them. Even if they just get into your subconscious, they affect you. I mean, I could show you numerous examples in my own life of things that I've manifested just by getting pictures of them and having them around me. Vision boards are a great example of that. But yeah, of course you have to take action. You can't just sit there and sit in a corner and wish and dream and whatnot. But when you have these things top of mind and you're thinking about them, God, the universe, whatever you believe, will throw things in front of you that will help you manifest those things. And people think it happens by happen chance, and it might, but the bottom line is that's what's happened for me. And that's how I had 50 million to lose and how I got back to, what I'm blessed to have today was, focusing on what I wanted, being around a supportive peer group, having positive expectation, pushing through limiting beliefs, creating that burning desire so that I get my butt up and I stay up late and I do whatever it takes to make things happen. And it's worked for me, and it's worked for, again, a ton of my students as well.
And I think one of the things that prevents people from taking action is fear.
Sure it is.
So
Sure it is.
how do you get through the fear? Because I think
Great
that's
question.
probably the number one thing holding people back.
It is fear and limiting beliefs. Actually, and there's one other one as well. So let's talk about that. So, so what is fear? False evidence appearing real, F everything and run. I like to think it's face everything and rise. But I will tell you, what fear does is it paralyzes. And I teach people to be grateful, number one, because you can't be grateful and fearful at the same time. You can't be grateful and angry at the same time. But so that's one strategy. But the bottom line is action mitigates fear. And if you just sit there and be fearful, the fear is gonna grow. You take action, you diminish the fear. So that's one thing. But you have to be, again, I'm going back and being redundant, but you have to create that burning desire. You've got to really want what it is you want and have clarity around what it is you want and know why you want it to create that burning desire like Napoleon Hill talks about. And so once you have that, then you have the ability to push through fear. There's also limiting beliefs. Many of us have limiting belief systems. Yeah, for me, I got thrown into school when I was 6 years old, didn't speak English, found out what bullies were for the first time. And I got my butt kicked regularly. I didn't know how to fight back yet. And then my mom, God bless her, proud Dutch woman that she is, thought it'd be a great idea to send me to school in wooden shoes for show and tell with the leather shorts the Germans wear for Oktoberfest, lederhosen. And I got my butt kicked again. And then they chased me home and my mom would chase them off with a fly swatter and I'd get my butt kicked the next day. And so I created this limiting belief that I wasn't good enough, right? In fact, I used to ask myself the question, how can I show them I'm good enough? Which of course presupposed that I wasn't. And so a lot of people have these limiting belief systems, like I'm not, good enough, or I'm not strong enough, or I'm not old enough, or I'm not young enough, or I don't have enough money, or I don't have enough time. And guys, there's a reason that the acronym for belief systems is BS, because 99.9% of them are just that, they're BS. But again, this burning desire helps you push through. And then the third thing I was going to mention is some people are comfortable, and the comfort zone's a warm place. But we all know nothing freaking grows there, right? And so again, it's that burning desire that gets you to push through the fear, push through the limiting beliefs, push through the comfort to go grab that life you deserve. That magnificent life of your dreams is just on the other side of comfort. You have to get a little uncomfortable, and that's okay. Tony Robbins has a phrase, which is the quality of your life is in direct proportion to the amount of discomfort you can live with. And if you're listening, think back of any amazing experience you've had in your life, and I promise you got a little uncomfortable. Anyway, long answer, but there you go.
No, that's perfect. Yeah. And I have always said that good is the enemy of great, right?
Tony says that as well. In fact, Tony says, I'm a great dad. Well, you're only great. You need to be outstanding. Okay. There's a huge gap between great and outstanding, but it ties right into what you said. Big difference between good and great. Absolutely. Yep.
And people do get comfortable. And
yeah. And then they wonder why their spouse leaves them, or, they're not happy. And, and there was this nurse in Australia named Bronnie Ware. She was a hospice nurse. And she took care of patients when they were about to die. And she asked them a question, Rocky. And the question was, do you have any regrets? And she wrote a book about it. It's called The 5 Regrets of Dying. You know what the number one regret was? Not living the life I could have lived, living someone else's life, not doing what I know I'm capable of. So if you're listening and you're afraid of failure, for God's sakes, fear regret more than failure. We fail our way to success, guys. The success is not a straight line. Maybe you've got a business and you've had some setbacks. I've had numerous times I've had to innovate or pivot to survive. In fact, one was right before COVID. I was scheduled to have 800 people in Orlando at a live event. There's no live events. And I had sold half the tickets. I'm like, holy shit, what are we going to do? And so I had to build a video studio. I was one of the first people to go virtual. And now I have virtual and live events that I do all the time. And so, anyway, sometimes you have to innovate or pivot, and that's okay. Here's a success formula. Focus on the goal. If that approach that you're doing doesn't work, refocus on the goal and change your approach. If that doesn't work, refocus on the outcome of the goal and change your approach, and rinse and repeat. And that's the secret to success. That business I was talking about, that $10 million business, I almost went bankrupt with that business in the end of 2010. And I had to innovate. And then again, it turned in, almost bankrupted it, but I innovated and it turned into a $10 million company. There's that book, 3 Feet from the Goal, about that miner that that gave up 3 feet from a gold vein. And that's what happens in life so often. So, another huge trait for success is freaking persistence, grit, determination, doggedness, resolve. You've got to keep going. Anyway, again, another long answer.
And that's what we expect on this show is long answers where we dig into it. And people need to hear this and be reminded of it, because we're all going to go through the ups and downs. And when we're on the downside, we've got to be reminded that we need to pivot and so forth. I will say I was pretty amazed I saw a group of people during COVID, like in those first few weeks, just dramatically pivot super fast, like almost overnight.
I had to. Yeah, I had to.
Wow,
in fact, if you go to Multifamily Virtual Boot Camp, I'm pretty sure the recording on there is still me on my cell phone recording it, because I literally did it like within a couple of days, because I had to, I literally had to pivot immediately. I'm pretty sure the cell phone video is still up there at that website, because I went virtual, Multifamily Virtual Boot Camp instead of Multifamily Boot Camp. So, and it worked. I've had thousands of people now attend my virtual boot camps. I actually really enjoy them. I missed the lot. I mean, I do live now. I had 800 people in Orlando a couple of months ago, and I loved it. It was the first live event since COVID, but and I'm doing those again now too. But yeah, you have to. If you sit there, if you have a speed bump, if you have a wall drop in front of you, you own your business, and you sit there and you analyze it forever, and you don't take action, you're going to lose. And so you've got to pivot and try new things and get around people that can help give you ideas and brainstorm this and innovate. Peter Drucker says every business is nothing but innovation and marketing. And I thought that's a fantastic definition of a business. And so you should always be innovating and growing. Anyway, I'm rambling.
And I think people don't realize nothing happens in business until somebody sells something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the one word we all don't want to talk about or deal with, which is sales, because for a lot of people, that's not comfortable. But the reality is, until somebody buys something, there's no money. And if there's no money, nothing's getting done. And that's just the reality of it. You've got to face that uncomfortable place and go out and sell. But the other half of selling is, if you solve people's needs, they will happily hand you money. And that's the one thing I love about real estate. With real estate, I don't have to create a need. Everybody needs a house. So if I can show them a good house that they like, it does not take much in the way of effort of sales.
Right.
So it's good from that standpoint.
No, I mean, honestly, what you just said is relative to every single business. And that is, the people that add the most value are the most successful on the planet. Look at Jeff Bezos. I can literally look at my desk here and I can buy anything on this desk in literally 30 seconds. Talk about, his obsession with the customer experience. And you're right about sales. It's interesting. I post on YouTube and I post on, now they've got me on TikTok, which I couldn't even spell 3 months ago, but I've had stuff go viral there. And one of them was a sales technique. And it's interesting, like I get all kinds of likes, but every so often I'll get a hate. It's like, oh, you're so greedy, or you want to sell. There's a lot of negative connotation around sales, and it's ridiculous, frankly. But these people. But anyway, I'm kind of blabbering here a little bit, but that just happened, and that's why it's kind of fresh on my mind. That I'm just astounded when I get the negative comments about negotiation strategy. Around, greed and no, it's not. It's commerce has been around forever. Buy and the strategy is buy low, sell high, right? And to do that, you negotiate. And anyway,
every kid is a natural salesperson. Yeah, if you look at them and the way they treat their parents, right? It is relentless asking for whatever they want, constantly negotiating whatever it is that they choose to have, and they never give up.
That's right.
That's just life. And I tell people, if you want a job, you got to sell yourself. You want a spouse, you got to sell yourself. You want more money, you got to sell yourself in however you do it. And that's a constant thing. So learning those skills, I think, is extremely important. and it will help get you so much farther in life.
Yeah, I will tell you, my son is selling roofing in Denver now, and I sold door to door as well. And I don't think there's any greater experience than that. And facing that rejection and all those different personalities. And he's become an incredible salesperson. I'm so proud of him, because he'll go, if they're putting a roof in, he'll knock on all the doors on the street. And I told him, push yourself, make it happen. And he's become an extraordinary salesperson. Sales is you're always selling every day. Sometimes you're selling your spouse and your kids and, other people. And it's a skill you must learn. So if you're not good at it, get a Grant Cardone book about, sell or be sold or something like that, and get some training, because it's life training, in my opinion. You agree with me, Rocky? I think it's life training.
It is very much life training. Yeah. And everyone needs to at least learn the skills, because throughout the day, you're either being sold to or you're selling.
Yeah, you could call it influencing if it makes you feel better. Become great at influencing. You don't like the word sales, but you have to do it. Yeah,
you do. And part of that also is to understand when you're being sold to, so you can understand the emotions. With social media, I don't think most people understand how much psychology goes on behind that and how much they're spending to sell you. And so you should at least understand it, if for no other reason that you can better control yourself.
Go watch The Social Dilemma, the movie The Social Dilemma. It'll blow your mind. I mean, we are being outmatched. Our brains are being outmatched by some of these supercomputers and their algorithms and AI that's happening right now. And I find myself getting sucked into social media feeds for hours sometimes. And I'm like, what the hell just happened? I got sucked in because they know what I want to see, and they'll tease me with the next thing. And it's pretty incredible how they're able to pull it off. Now, there's a lot of negative to all this. There's an incredible divisiveness happening as a result of that we won't go down that rabbit hole. But the point is, you need to know when that's happening to you. So I agree with you completely, Rocky.
Be aware. Today's episode is sponsored by Profit Answer Man Podcast. Did you know that most small business owners hate looking at their financials? It's one reason they may struggle with business success. The Profit Answer Man Podcast helps them ensure they are profitable and can pay their employees and weather the storms we all have to face. It's built on the Profit First methodology of pay yourself first. The Profit Answer Man Podcast is a must listen to for every small business owner and anyone who wants to help them survive and thrive. Check it out on your favorite listening platform. At the end, the question is, what's the difference between achievement versus fulfillment in life?
Well, I'll give you an example. I had achieved incredible success by societal standards. See, when I lived in Denver, I always knew I wanted to live on the beach. And there's no beach in Denver, but I would visualize the palm trees and the surf and the sand. And 20 years later, I built this incredible $8 million mansion on the beach. I mean, this place was amazing. I had the beach on one side. I had my boats on the backside. It was called a Gulf to Bay. So I wanted to slice through an island. And I had a giant waterfall from the second floor balcony into the pool, elevator, wine cellar, and I'll land the plane with this. On the second floor, I had aquariums built around the spiral staircase that went up through the middle of the house. The aquariums cost me almost $200,000. So this gives you an idea of the house. Well, 2 months after I moved in, so I worked for this thing for 20 years, okay? 2 months after I moved in, I'm floating in the pool at night, and I'm looking up at this testament to my ego, which is really what it was. It was to prove the world I was good enough. I told you that I had that question I asked myself, how can I show them I'm good enough? Well, this was how I was going to show them I'm good enough. And I had the Maserati in the garage, and, I've had all that stuff, the Rolls Royce, the Bentley, the Lamborghini, all the stuff that I thought was important that I manifested, and it may not interest you at all, but I had manifested that stuff. And I look up at this thing, my family's inside sleeping. I got depressed. And I don't mean just a little depressed. I was really bummed. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? I've just achieved success like times 1,000, and I'm depressed. And when I look back on it, there were several things happening. One relates to goals. You should never achieve big goals without having other goals lined up behind them. Like the good book says, without a vision, the people perish. And it's never about the goals. Happiness comes from progress and growth. And I didn't know what I was going to do next. So that was a big piece. But the bigger piece was, I'd been totally focused on me. Show the world I'm good enough. Show the world I matter. Rod this, Rod that. And so I went out and bought some books. I got, back then self-help was Zig Ziglar and Tony Robbins. And I started reading Tony's book. And I'm like, man, I really like this. So I went and saw him live. And I saw that he fed families for the holidays. And I'm like, what a concept. Do something for someone else. I'm embarrassed to say I had to be 40 to get that memo. This is 22 years ago. And so I called my brother in Denver. I was going to go visit for Thanksgiving. And I said, hey, buddy, let's go feed 5 families. I said, go find 5 families who really need help. And he went to his church. And so I went there. We bought food. We bought toys for the kids. We got frozen turkeys. We got roasting pans. We got everything they need to have a fantastic holiday meal with toys. And the third house changed my life. We get up to this crappy 1-bedroom. It was a crappy 1-bedroom row house. You got to walk through the bedroom to get to the kitchen. It wasn't even a 1-bedroom. And this woman lived there with 5 kids. She comes out and she sees all this stuff on the porch and she starts crying. Her kids come out. A couple of the older ones start crying. I start crying and I'm hooked. And please know what I'm going to say next is not to impress you. There's a message in this. And I'm so glad you asked that question, Rocky. So since then, I've now fed 110,000 kids for the holidays. I've done tens of thousands of backpacks filled with school supplies to local kids. Astounding. We live in the greatest country on earth and kids don't even have school supplies sometimes. I've done tens of thousands of teddy bears to local police departments for their officers to put in their vehicles when they encounter a child that's been traumatized to bridge that gap. And see, I was successful, but I was unfulfilled. Tony Robbins calls it the science of achievement versus the art of fulfillment. Achievement really is a science, okay? There's a map, there's a blueprint. You want to learn multifamily, for God's sakes, I'll tell you about a boot camp. You can come for $100 to spend time with me and learn this business. There's a science. You just do it and you'll be a success. Of course, you got to do it, but yes, you'll be a success. But fulfillment is an art because you have to find something that juices you, okay? Now that could be children like it is for me, or it could be the elderly, or it could be the environment, it could be animals, whatever it is, and give back right now. Now, you might be listening to Rocky saying, I'll do it when I have the money. No, do it right now. Why? Because you'll get the success faster. See, we've been taught to achieve to be happy, that we have to actually achieve before we can be happy. But I'm going to tell you, if you give back, you're happily achieving. I know it's a play on words, but it's an important play on words. And whatever you give, you know this, Rocky, whatever you give, you get back 100-fold, 1,000-fold, and even money, you'll get it back 100-fold or 1,000-fold. So give right now. You'll be living a life of fulfillment, not just achievement, and you'll get the success faster and you'll be much happier. And again, I had to be 40 to get that memo, but now I get so much pleasure out of teaching. And like I said, my greatest achievement next to my kids is those students that have tens of thousands of units now and life-changing results in their lives. And it's why I love what I do now. I mean, I work on Sundays while my wife puts up with it because I absolutely freaking love life right now. And I mean, when I say this, and please know this is not ego either. When I tell you that I get love several times a day, I'm not exaggerating. I get a gift. I'll show you behind the wall here. I've got hundreds of thank you cards. The whole wall is covered. You can't see them all here if you're watching this, but if you're just listening, I literally have hundreds of thank you cards on the wall behind me. I get a card or a gift or a book or a DM or an email, several a day, every day. And I mean, you get addicted to, that. And I'm sure you do, Rocky. I'm sure you get a lot of incredible feedback for your podcast work as well. And it's just an awesome thing. You agree with me?
I absolutely do. And science has proven that you actually get much more happiness and contentment in giving than in receiving.
Oh, for sure. For sure. In fact, if you're depressed, you are focused on you. If you focus outwardly and give, it's impossible to be depressed. So, yeah.
So is that all through your Tiny Hand Foundation?
Yes, it is. That's my Tiny Hands Foundation. I formed a foundation after a while. I did it all myself. I paid for it for up until 2008 when the market crashed. In fact, in 2008, I fed, hold on here, 6,000 kids, paid for it myself. And then, the market crashed. I started taking donations. And let me do a shout out. If you have an interest, $22 feeds a family. I'm sorry, it's $25 now. Price has gone up. $25 feeds a family of 3. And every dime goes to the food. If you'd like to donate, text Tiny Hands to 72345. And And like I said, I cover all the operational expenses and then some. So every dime goes to the stuff. Okay. There's no overhead or margin or first class flying or any crap like that. Some of these charities have. Every dime goes through the stuff. So would love the support. And I appreciate you letting me do a shout out on that, buddy.
You are most welcome. So we've been kind of dancing around the whole real estate thing here. And I guess the question is if somebody wants to get started in real estate investing, what's the first thing that they should focus on?
Well, let me ask a question. When will this episode go live, do you think?
Probably April-ish.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, listen, I do my virtual events and they're typically around $100 and they're 18 hours of training with nothing being sold. So if you have an interest, text my name, Rod, to 72345 and whatever event's next, you'll get information on. And if you don't get the $97 price, just DM me on any social channel. I'll give you a code to get it. But I don't sell anything there. So 16, 18 hours of training, nothing being sold. So there you go. Now back to your question. Okay. In my business, it's multifamily real estate. So it's not kind of like I can give you 2 or 3 steps to go do this because there are quite a few steps, which is why I wanted to bring up the boot camp because I teach it for 18 hours. But, one of the first things is you build a team. My business is a team sport. It's not like single family or wholesaling, flipping or buying houses and renting them out. So you start with a team and you
all
align
of those
with
require teams too.
Well, no, I know very, very
teams.
successful people that have bought, flipped houses, wholesale houses on their own. Okay. Very successful people, but multifamily is definitely a team sport. Okay. And if you're huge, like we talked about a mastermind we both know about. Yeah. Some of the guys in there that flip hundreds of houses a year, of course they have a team, but there are a lot of people that have flipped a couple of houses or they bought a couple of rentals and they've done it themselves. Multifamily in my world where it's 5 units or higher, it's always a team. And so, you align with people that are strong where you're weak. You play to your strengths. That's one thing you got to do. Then you've got to figure out how to find deals. And I teach that. Obviously, you can do direct to seller marketing. You build relationships with brokers. So you've got to get out there and mix it up and meet people. And then you've just got to learn the business. You got to know how to evaluate a deal. And my business is primarily empirical. It's primarily numbers. You get the numbers right and you ask all the right questions. It's pretty hard to make a mistake. And so, but you've got to either find someone that's good with the numbers to align with, or you do it and you'll be fine too. But you do have to spend the time, analyzing the income and expenses and seeing what you can do to improve the bottom line. It's called the net income, net operating income, NOI. Any improvement to that NOI, that income is an exponential improvement to the value. It's not like residential multifamily where like a duplex, triplex, fourplex, the value there is based on comparable sales. You get into 5 units or higher, the value is completely based on income. And so, any improvement to that income, like I say, equates to about $17 to $20 to every $1 improvement in the income. So it's exponential, and that's the beautiful thing about our business is you can go in there and force appreciation. I've got assets that we have raised the rents and increased the value overnight, $10 million. I've got an asset that we bought for $16.5 million a couple of years ago that we've got under contract for 28 right now because we ramped the value, because we ramped the income. So, and you can certainly do that on a smaller scale too. It still applies on a 10 unit as much as it does like on this 400 unit I just described. So, yeah.
I think a big part of that is being able to see opportunity where others don't.
Yeah, certainly it is.
Being able to see how you can add value without spending a fortune. And there are a lot of times where you can do small things that create big results. I mean, classic example is you drive up to a really ugly building. Well, how cheaply can you make the front of that building look good? Because people want to come home to something nice, and that will drive rents. That will drive. In the end of the day, that's what it is, right? You can drive rents higher. You can.
That's absolutely a big piece of it. Absolutely. The curb appeal is a big piece. That could be paint, landscaping, and a number of things. Resurfacing a parking lot. There's all sorts of things that, relatively speaking, are not as crazy expensive as others that absolutely impact value quickly.
Very true. Or being in the path of growth, knowing where something is coming that maybe others haven't seen yet, and being ahead of the curve and just letting that growth drive your fortune?
If you're head of an area that's gentrifying and you have the, what's the word, cojones to get in there and deal with the tough tenants for a few years, you can really make a lot of money. I'll give you an example. There were areas in Denver where I could buy houses for $20,000 a piece that are now $1 million plus a piece. Okay. Because it gentrified. And so, but that's a long-term play, and it takes, you have to deal with some riffraff for a good bit. But if you start seeing the artists coming in, this is in an urban environment. Certainly if you see a path of progress where things are being built, the same thing applies. But in an urban environment like that, you start seeing the artists come in the coffee shops and stuff like that. And then you've got, crack house, and you've got an artist studio and so on. Ultimately, it'll clean up, but it's painful while that's happening, but it can be super lucrative.
Totally agree with you. So I see one of the things that you say is that psychology is more important than technical knowledge in real estate. And I think most people spend all their time trying to figure out the technicals.
If it was just the technical, there'd be a bunch of wealthy librarians and college professors out there. Okay, it's the do and it's the keep doing. And I'm going to tell you, it doesn't just apply to real estate. It applies to any business. 80 to 90% of a person's success in anything, including relationships, frankly, including health, including business of any sort, is mindset and psychology. Okay, only the vehicle, as it were, for business or business related is 10 to 20% of it. Okay, I see it with my students all the time. They just take massive action and they're a success, and they fake it till they make it if they have to. But it's astounding. It's really about action, and of course that action's driven by that mindset and psychology, just to go do it.
Do you have any great resources that you've shared in the past for how people can improve their mindset or their psychology?
Well, my love language is gifts. And so my students get lots of gifts from me. In fact, I had the author of the 5 Love Languages on my show. It was a real treat because I've given away thousands of his books. By the way, if you haven't read that book, go read it if you love anybody, because you need to know how they feel love. And I give love by gifts. That's just my wife gets the benefit of that. She never expects anything, but she delights in the gifts that I give her. But, some of the gifts that I give my students include books like The Slight Edge, which is about all those decisions that you make, little decisions every day that traject your life up or down. Okay. And they don't really impact you that day, but a great example would be health and what you eat. It doesn't impact you that day, but it trajects your life up or down. Another book is Gary Keller's One Thing. I had his co-author on the show, Jay Papasan, a fantastic book for focus. Another book is Hal Elrod's Miracle Morning, around getting up and starting your day right. I was blessed to have him on the show too. He's a great guy. And getting up and journaling for a little bit, exercising for a little bit, meditating or praying for a little bit. I'm forgetting something, but anyway, that's an awesome way to start your day off. What's another one? Turning Pro by Stephen Pressman, about, if you're going to do anything, for God's sake, stop being an amateur, be a professional. Fantastic book that I give my students. Well, there's a few.
Thank you for sharing those. And yeah. I've read many of them. So a lot of what you're talking about is kind of on the softer side of life, the parts of life that many of us ignore, which is our health, our diet,
our relationships.
And so any advice for people? Like clearly they need to focus on them. You're ready to go.
No. I spend a lot of time on this. Let me tell you why. Okay. My greatest regret in life to this day, okay, is I would come home to that $8 million mansion on the beach and I would play with my kids, but I wasn't there mentally. It's my greatest regret to this day. My kids will tell you I was a great dad, but I didn't live up to my own expectations. And so one of the things I teach in my boot camps is this process, this planning process, where you focus on what's most important. And we don't have time to get into it right now, but it's very, very powerful because so many of us on our path to success, we forget what's most important. And then we either have a regret or we lose relationships. And in my case, it was both. And so, and so I spend a lot of time on this with my students and at my boot camps to really get aligned with what it is that somebody wants and what's important in their lives, and focusing, making sure that your time is regimented so that when you are with the people that really matter, you're totally present. Okay. The phone goes in the drawer for whatever period of time, even if it's a short period of time. I can tell you, your kids and your spouse would rather have 15 minutes of your total attention than an hour of distraction. And so we spend time on that. And it's critical that you do that. And you know this, Rocky, because otherwise you do have a life of regret. And what's the purpose of life? The purpose of life is to be happy and to have love. And those things, a lot of people think that it's to be successful. But honestly, if you ask yourself why you want to be successful and you drill down deep enough, you'll find it's to be happy and have love. So, it's critical that and I stress this because, again, it's my regret to this day that, not to lose sight of what matters the most.
And thank you for sharing that and for being honest about some of the regrets and so forth.
Yeah. Is
there anything else that you wanted to chat about today that we didn't get a chance to?
No, I mean, we could go deeper on, I do a goal setting workshop. I sometimes outline what I do, but if you're interested in that, if you DM me on any social channel, I do it every year on January 1st or 2nd. I did it on the 1st this year. It takes about an hour and a half. I give you a free guide to download. It doesn't cost anything. It's music and it's professionally done. And I'll guide you through my goal setting workshop. And it's a great thing to do with your kids, with your spouse. And so if you DM me on any social, like I said, I'm on everything now, including TikTok and Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook, you name it. DM me on any of them and I'll get you the link to that. And it's a really powerful exercise that'll really give you clarity on what you want, help you create that burning desire or reassociate maybe with that burning desire, and you got to do your goals regularly. You don't just do them once. You're not once and done because your dreams and your the things that you want change over time. Like right now, I don't give it, I've got a few $100,000 worth of watches. I've had all those cars I described and the houses and all that stuff. And I get much more pleasure from my students, from my bride, from quality time with my kids and my spouse and my foundation and things change. So the point is you should do your goals regularly to make sure that you're aligned and moving in the right direction. And then ideally do them with your spouse and compare notes after you do them and see how aligned you are so that you're headed the same direction. So again, DM me. I'm happy to provide the link to that I do every year. But no, I think we've covered it, buddy. It's been a lot of fun. I mean, it's always fun when you're the one doing the talking, how to win friends and influence people, right? You let them talk and they think it's the greatest conversation ever. So I've thought this was the greatest conversation ever because it's been mostly me.
And, that was a big aha for me that if you want to make friends, talk 10% and let them talk 90. And
that's right.
It does a great thing. Based on our conversation, what's one action step people can take this week to move forward in their life?
Do my goal setting workshop. For God's sakes, do that if you haven't done it recently. Do that for sure. Okay. But if not, just do goals on your own. But I can tell you, guided is really powerful with the music. And I'm suggesting things. And it's not just goals. It's what do you want to do in your life? Where do you want to go? What do you want to learn? Who do you want to help? All of those things are relevant. So it's kind of like a life plan. So that would be it's free. I'm not going to hit you up with trying to sell you something afterwards or anything like that. So just go do that. You'll be glad you did. So that's one thing.
And I love for people to have a life plan. I say everyone should have a written life plan so you have clarity on what you want, and it makes your decision making so easy afterwards because you can look at your plan and say, is this in my plan? Yes or no? And then you can make your decision and move on from there. It's time to learn the secrets of life. What's your secret to living an abundant life?
Giving back without question. Giving till it hurts, in every way, shape, or form of my time, of money, of my knowledge. These podcasts, I do my boot camps. I don't make much money on my boot camps, but it all comes back to me. Good Lord, we have an 8-figure business because because I give. So absolutely giving back.
And I concur. Giving back is definitely a wonderful gift. What did you learn later in life that you wish you would have learned sooner?
I talked about that. Success versus fulfillment. That was the biggest epiphany I've ever had, was floating in that pool and being depressed, having what society believes is everything, and being depressed because I wasn't giving back, because I wasn't focused on I was just focused on me. And so, I don't think I can do better than that example.
No, that's perfect.
Yeah.
If you were to give an 18-year-old one specific piece of wisdom, what would it be?
I just had one of my coaching students' daughter interviewed me yesterday, and she asked that question. And I said, go try everything and go find what you love and do what you love. I don't care if it's baking cakes. I don't care what it is, because if you do what you love, chances are the money will come and you'll never work another day in your life. And that's what I told her. Go try everything. Find your passion. Life is about living with passion. And that was my advice to her.
And unfortunately, that is not something they teach you in school or college.
No, they teach you to go get a job, go to college, get a job, and then that's no.
You skipped that whole step.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I mean, and listen, I wish I'd have gone to college just for the social aspect of it. But I've got this picture that I show people where I've got hundreds of lanyards from boot camps and masterminds that I've attended. I've got my arms out. I've got to hang them on my arms around my neck, because learning is earning, and I believe in learning, and I'm better read. I've got a library like you've got behind you, thousands of books, literally thousands. And I'm better read than most college graduates, but learners are earners. So, yeah.
Unfortunately, for many adults, the last time they read a book was school.
Yeah.
And that is unfortunately a shame.
Yeah.
If people would like to follow your work and learn more about you, what's the best place?
Go to Real Estate with Rod. My name is hard to spell. My website's rodkhleif.com, but nobody can spell my name. So go to Real Estate with Rod, or come check out my podcast called Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing. And I'm blessed to say it's the largest commercial real estate podcast in the world, and over 12 million downloads. And again, even if you're not interested in real estate, you'll love my Own Your Power clips. But Real Estate with Rod or Lifetime Cash Flow podcast, I think you'll get tons of value. My website has articles and videos and books that are free. Everything's free, and lots of incredible content there that if you're interested in this business, or again, come spend a couple of days with me at one of my boot camps. If you DM me, I'll make sure it's $97, and I don't sell anything there for 16 hours or 18 hours of training. Kind of a duh if you're interested in this business. Even if you just want to invest passively, you need to know what it is you're investing in. So come spend some time with me. I promise you'll be glad you did. I've had thousands of people never had a complaint. Other than, I'm sorry, that's a lie. Other than the breaks are too short, because I pack so much stuff in. I do 15-minute breaks. I promise you they're harder on me than they are on you, because I have to eat and go to the bathroom and all that. But anyway, that's enough.
Come on, Tony goes 16 hours straight. None of that.
Yeah. I've seen behind the scenes. I've worked with him, and I know what goes on behind the curtain. But yes, you get that impression for sure. Now, he can go for a long time. He's like a camel.
Cool. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Appreciate you, brother.
As always, I have a million questions. How many books do you read? Are your goals and plans written down? Those two action steps can dramatically push you forward in life. Learning from others and taking action and avoiding their mistakes. The reality is, life is pretty simple. But as Rod said, doing simple is hard, and sometimes it's uncomfortable. Seems like Tony Robbins has inspired a lot of people to do just that. Maybe one day we can have him on the podcast too. Real estate's a proven way to build and grow your wealth. However, you need to understand what you're getting involved with and make sure you understand the deal that you are making. This week's action step, set goals. Rod's got a free program. Or maybe there's one you love that you have sitting on the shelf. Do that for the short term, for the long term. I like to work backwards from the long-term goal all the way to, hey, what's the first action step I need to take today? That first step doesn't need to be scary. Make it as simple as possible and make it winnable. And then just take it. That's all you have to do. I think people make the first step too hard, and then we don't take it. But if you make it easy and winnable, life becomes simple and easy. Next week, I've got on Katie Angle to talk about investing and how to keep your head while others are losing theirs. By the way, if you enjoyed this episode, could you do me a favor and share it with a friend, family member? I would really appreciate that. Thanks for listening. Have an abundant week.